you would think me as a very niche comedian, but
Hmm.
my demographic are kind of pretty diverse because like Chinese people obviously love this, and they get the inside joke. And American audience love them because American all I said in my special the only country American doesn't care about other country, but the only country they care so much about is China. They really want to hear someone talking about COVID and what I think of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And it's so funny because the both Democrats and Republican, like both conservative and liberal Americans, like my comedy.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Chinatown 2.0, a show about Chinese immigrants thriving. I'm your host, Richard Yan. Today I interviewed Olivia Xing. She is a stand-up comedian based in Los Angeles, and she recently did a 1-hour comedy special called Party School, where she told jokes about China, the US, their political systems, and her experience as an immigrant to America. The conversation was very lighthearted, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoy it too. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hey, Olivia, how's it going? Thanks for the show. Is that your room you're calling from?
Yeah, I hold conference in my bedroom all the time. That's why I have so many chairs. No, I'm at school. I'm a full-time student, so this is Thursday. I just finished the class in the morning. This is my lunch break.
Okay, okay. Weren't you going to school in Pennsylvania at one point?
Yeah, I graduated from Bryn Mawr College in 2020, and that was pandemic. And then I worked a year in New York, and now I moved to LA, and pursuing a master in fine arts.
Okay, MFA. Got it. How's that going?
I love it. Cal Arts is a very experimental, silly place. It's a very
Yeah.
small school, much like Bryn Mawr.
Hopefully more guys than females.
Yeah, so Bryn Mawr College is a women's college, and I had this joke in my special, like women's college, sorry, lesbian college. Anyway.
You know how many guys want to go to Burma just because of what you said? Anyway, yeah, but
Well, if you identify as another pronoun, so you could anyway, so Colors was founded by Walt Disney, and now it expanded into more schools, more than just doing animation. So I'm in theater school and I am doing acting.
okay, awesome. Well, obviously, I got to know you through your special called 党校 in Chinese or Party School in English, which is a,
Thank you so much for coming.
yeah, no problem, which is roughly a 1-hour special where you tell all kinds of jokes about China, America, politics, international relations, immigrant life, which is great. This is very relevant to my show and me. And so, how's that been going for you? Are you done with your tour now? Are you planning on doing more of it? What's the status?
So I premiered the show last November when the protest hit.
Hmm.
I was very emotional. I just came back from protests and I put the special together and I did it in a small theater at school for 3 nights. And then I was like, no, the materials are too rough. And like it's too from there rather than like I need to make it tighter and funnier
Yeah,
and more like a comedy rather than a one woman show, you know?
right.
So San Jose was actually the first stop for my tour.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and I'm interested in touring to other places. I'm like in contact with comedy clubs at East Coast, like Boston, New York, and hopefully, if you know anyone,
Yeah.
hit me up.
Right, right, right. Okay, okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe you could also go to college campuses. Maybe that's another possibility.
Definitely. I also try to balance my school and my comedy.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I probably go back on tour again in the summer once I finish this semester, which will be like in May. And I'm trying to go to Edinburgh in August. So before going to Edinburgh, I will really have to do it again and again and again just to polish it.
Okay. Are you going there to perform? Just going there for fun.
Yes,
Oh,
very excited.
oh, the Edinburgh Festival, right?
Edinburgh Fringe, yes. all the comedians came from there, and I was like, it's always been a dream. And I thought to myself, why don't I just do it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I applied and got some offers from some venues, not the big one, not like Underbelly or they, no, I'm still a very unknown, obscure, small comedian, emerging comedian.
Emerging comedian from emerging economy.
That's a good joke.
So how does it work? You go to Edinburgh and then it's like comedy festival, meaning there are many side events. Is there like a major conference with side events happening? How does it work?
No, it's more like a theater festival. It's called Edinburgh Fringe Theater Festival, but comedy is a big part of it.
Okay. It's called French festival. It's in English or in French? Because I know you speak French too.
Oh, Fringe,
Oh, Fringe.
Fringe.
Oh, okay, okay, never mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry.
French comedy in Edinburgh. Yeah.
I did start doing comedy in French.
Did you really?
Yeah, I went to my first open mic when I was studying abroad in Paris.
Right.
I was so bored because I was an alcoholic when I in college.
Alcoholic?
Alcohol, no, workaholic. Sorry.
Oh, workaholic. Okay, all right. Cool. I'm not sure which one's better, but go ahead.
But in
Yeah.
Europe, nobody studies.
Mm,
So I
okay.
just found a little bar and they have a cave downstairs where every Monday all the English speaking expat just go and perform in English in whatever genre of art, like could be playing guitar, singing a song, or doing a joke. So I started there. When I started, I was sort of mixing English and French.
Oh, I see. Okay. And then this was how many years ago?
It was in 2027, wait, no, 19, 3,
Okay.
4 years old. I
So that's when your comedy career sort of got started, right?
No, I stopped. I did like 3 open mics and guess what? They were also casting. There was a Chinese show was casting in Europe, 奇葩说. I actually went to their audition and I got
Yeah.
into the first round, but then I was like, I have school, so I can't do this. So I
Okay.
didn't do it eventually. If only I had done that, I would be famous and rich now. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, yeah. Well, 奇葩说, I've seen people perform, and I've always wondered, how do you not practice self-censorship? Like, it's so hard to be a free-flowing, thinking artist and good speaker, and simultaneously balance that against what you're not supposed to say. It's so difficult, don't you think? I mean, unless your ideology is highly aligned with the state, I kind of feel that it's almost like an oxymoron.
You know what? I think that's why the show is not airing anymore.
奇葩说, really? I didn't know that.
Right?
Well, to be sure, 奇葩说 is like this thing where people debate in a funny way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Social topic.
I do think the censorship is getting stricter and stricter.
Yeah,
A couple years ago, what they were talking about, I don't think it could go on air right now.
I see.
But I agree with you. Self-censorship is
I mean, it's unbelievable. So think about like 清零政策, right? Okay, let's talk about hey guys, let's have a debate for the hottest topic of the day. What is it? Is it no, it's not 清零政策. Let's find something else to talk about. I mean, it's just impossible.
yeah, it's whether you should save a cat from a fire in a
Wow.
museum, blah blah blah, something like that. I have a theory for that. So I was reading about another show, like
No, I don't know what it is.
圆桌会议. Do you remember? Do you know that show? It's a bunch of guys talking about very metaphysical questions. And I looked at it, I was like, you're not really talking about anything, but you're talking about everything. And it's because you're talking about everything in such a metaphysical and deep and seemingly profound way, you're not talking about the real
Yeah,
thing that
yeah, I
concerns
see.
with everyday life. It happens in history too, like in 魏晋.
It's one of the dynasties.
I don't know how what's that in English. Anyway, like thousand years ago when there was also a lot of censorship, that's what the literates do. Like the highly educated scholar knows that they can't talk about real stuff, so they have to talk about all the like
Mhm.
philosophy and heaven, God, is it spirituality and all that kind of stuff, but they're not grounded. You know,
Right.
that's how I felt about all the debate show in China.
Yeah.
Like, do they really care about the society, or they're showing off of their knowledge and intelligence and how many books they read?
So 奇葩说, you're right. It finished in 2020. And
Yeah,
so, but just to echo that, what do you think is going to happen to 脱口秀大会? I don't know if you watch it or follow it.
I loved that show when it first aired. I loved the first 2 to 3
Uh-huh.
seasons. Oh my God, I love that song. Wang Mian and Rock, they did Beijing, Beijing.
Okay. I haven't heard that song, but go ahead. I know who Wang Mian is.
That was really good comedy, and it was very Chinese, and I was so proud of them. I was like, finally, some good comedy in my mother tongue.
Hmm.
But now it's the topics that they can talk about are getting more and more limited.
Mm. Do you feel that?
It's like, yeah,
Okay.
like if you talk about feminism in China,
Yeah.
the only entry point is about body image and how, or like materialism, capitalism. But that's not it. Like the feminist issue on the table for Chinese women are about we are forced to get married and give birth to more babies because the country is lacking of.
Oh, right. So people are encouraged to have multiple kids, 3 kids, right? So you're
Yes.
saying, I see.
And that's what I feel like it's because they're concerned about the economy and how there won't be enough man force basically to boost the economy that's based on how big the population
Right.
is.
Right.
But the feminism, it's sort of countering that, it's like we have us be a strong independent woman without a family or kids.
Right.
But in the show, what was it called? 脱口秀大会. I really loved all the female comedians, but honestly, even they can't talk about like real issues.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know about the story about this other Chinese comedian that used to be big on 脱口秀大会 that left China to come to the US and performed here all the
And he's canceled now in China.
well, he definitely got canceled in China, if not worse. Um, but I just feel that he's saying a lot of things these other comedians in China want to say, though. Like if you're a comic, right?
Wait, did you go to see his show?
No, I did not. I did not see his show.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I follow a lot of commentary on YouTube regarding his show, so I know a lot about what happened.
But I heard even 池子 didn't really say anything. Like it's kind of,
Yeah, some people said he only scratched the surface, but
yeah.
yeah, but even scratching the surface is unacceptable to the censorship policies back there, right?
Unfortunately, yes. That's why I don't do comedy in Chinese. Doing it in English gave me a sort of freedom. But mostly, I think it's the language, how this genre is originated from English, and how the English language has the vocabulary to support the humor.
Right. To be honest with you, I think Mandarin also does. It's just that you grew up in an environment where you weren't exposed to that kind of
Right,
material.
I
Yeah. I mean,
guess.
so was I, right? So, the funny thing is, are you familiar with rapping in China, the rapping industry?
Yeah.
So apparently there's some rappers that 唱红歌. Are you
Oh,
familiar?
I know.
咱们工人有力量 was edited for like so patriotic rap basically. And it's in I don't know, I think it's very dystopian because rap originated as a way for the oppressed to express their anger
Mhm.
towards the authority. And now it's been co-opted as propaganda machine. Like the rappers, they're trying to be cool and act as if they were equivalent as their American counterparts. But if you look at them, like literally they're saying, I don't give a thing in their rap because they dare not use curse words. They don't have tattoos. They do this in their pictures instead of, this.
I have read something about why a lot of Chinese rappers are from Sichuan.
Mm.
One of the theory is that Sichuan is so far away from Beijing, and it's sort of the notion 天高皇帝远,
Oh, I
right?
see.
But also there's like the Sichuan dialect it has this flow to it and this rhythm to it. It's easier to rap, but also I think it's right. Like think about the Xinjiang and all those Uyghur comedian and the not the comedian, all those Uyghur rappers and all the rappers from Sichuan. I do think it's because they live in a probably a freer environment that's a little bit far away from the political center. But yeah, even them, once they're famous, and they want the money, so they're paid
Yeah.
to do the. I think they know. That's the thing. I don't think Chinese people are stupid. We know everything.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I imagine these underground Chinese rap battles. Like, how does it go down? So you try to rip each other apart, but you're not allowed to touch these subjects, and you're not allowed to compare them to XYZ. I mean, it's just so hard. It's like I'm trying to be this gangster, okay? I'm like this rebel, and like, I'm gonna tear you apart. But no, I'm not gonna cross that red line. It's really weird. It's like you're trying to be a bad student and a good student at the same time.
It's like
Like a 三好流氓.
you feel like you try to be a cool student, but you also a teacher's pet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I really hate that. I'm the kind of person who really hates authority. Like growing up, if you tell me what to do, I won't do that. So it gave me a heartache to think about the fellow artists in China.
Yeah. So I had some other questions about the party school show, right? Let's go back to it. Like, what do you think are your biggest takeaways or surprises so far from doing the show?
One thing I learned from doing it this time was that material and performance, they both matter. I think this time I got better jokes. I was rewriting the script and my material was more solid, but I lost the passion to perform it. I wasn't as invested in the performance as I was in last November, because it's a totally different political situation right now in China. And I was rewatching the comedy special by Hannah Gadsby, Nanette, right? And I was also listening to her book, and it made me realize how much stand-up comedy is not just text-based. It's not just jokes. If you're
Yeah.
doing a special, I really need to perform it rather than just tell
Mm.
the jokes. So this time, I feel like I didn't really do a good job to. It's not even about delivery; it's about the emotion behind your delivery.
Yeah. Yeah. I see.
Yeah, think about another example would be Ronnie Chen. Like if he is not angry delivering his text,
Yeah.
it's not as fun to watch. It's not as funny. So that's a big takeaway. I think right now I really need to focus on both the text aspect and the non-textual aspect.
Okay, interesting. Almost feels like at the beginning of every show, you should just read some really insane, absurd news from China. Just open a news up. Yeah.
That's the thing. I told this to my friend, and my friend laughed at me and said, "Oh, Olivia, you really need your country to be fucked up to be a good comedian, huh?" And I'm like, "No, but I also don't want my country to be fucked up."
All
Ugh.
right. Well, okay, that's helpful. Can I just tell you some of my favorite jokes from your show? I mean, I don't want to spoil them.
Please, I would love to hear some feedback.
Yeah. So this one, you mentioned how people have stereotypes, and you mentioned you're from Henan, right? And then it's funny because the audience immediately went, "Ooh, ugh." I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I don't know how that kind of stereotype perpetuated, and even for educated North American Silicon Valley people, they still very much were aware and weren't holding them back in expressing that disdain. So I thought that was funny.
Thank you.
There's one about catcalling.
Uh-huh.
So people say 你好,谢谢, and then you're like, dude, you got to commit to it. Why don't you learn more Chinese so you can be, like more insulting in the proper way, right?
You should say, "I like it better when you bend over, baby girl," in Chinese. Because if you actually say that, I would bend over and give you a bow to show my respect.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Obviously, I like the cryptocurrency one, as we talked about a little bit earlier, because there is a lot of similarity. unfortunately, between the crypto world and the way the country is run in China.
And just coincidentally, CCP it's
Yeah,
and cryptocurrency is also CC. So
yeah. That's right. That's true. How did you decide to come perform in Silicon Valley as opposed to other places? Like, how do you decide what are good locations for you for the tour?
this is more about who I know rather than like
Okay.
my own decision. I got to know the founder of Silicon Valley Chinese Comedy Club, 硅谷脱口秀, like a couple years ago. And I just asked them, I was like, I have this 1 hour special. Can you help me book a venue and find some audience? And I'll help you promote. And basically, we co produced it. Mostly they produced it, and I came to perform.
Okay. Okay. Nice.
It's more about who you know. And then that's how it is in comedy, I feel like.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of gigs that I could get in
Yeah.
LA, it's because I spoke to one of them after the show, and they're like, "Oh, I have a show. You're funny. Come to my show." Most jobs came just so spontaneously, and I sort of have to stay open and flexible and say yes to things. And I'm really good at saying yes to things.
Okay. Okay. So what about the content, right? Because your material is mostly China slash US, right? What kind of audience generally responds to that the best? Is there such a demographic?
That it's a really good question because I feel
Yeah.
like you would think me as a very niche comedian, but
Hmm.
my demographic are kind of pretty diverse because like Chinese people obviously love this, and they get the inside joke, and American audience love them because American all I said in my special, the only country American doesn't care about the other country, but the only country they care so much about it's China. They really want to hear someone talking about COVID and what I think of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
And it's so funny because the both Democrats and Republican, like both conservative and liberal Americans, like my comedy. And I found that out when I went to Simi Valley in California to do a gig. Oh my God, it was the widest crowd I've ever got. They really ate it up because I guess, you know,
Mm.
they
Yeah. China is in the back of their minds. They do want to hear things about
oh, I know why. Because I'm not a liberal Asian American talking about this being a Democrat on the stage. Obviously, I'm not conservative. They look at me as an outsider that's looking
China. Yeah.
back at them and they want to hear
Right.
about it. So, as bipartisan as American audience are getting, they still, when they see someone who's Chinese, they still stick together and realize, oh, I'm American.
Right. I see. Yeah. I mean, I think COVID and, the balloon incident and all these other things, I think really keep China in the back of people's minds. So they really want to hear about it. Do you see a lot of other comedians in your cohort? Like when I say your cohort, I'm talking about people like you and me, or where English is not our first language, but we perform in English, right? So I would say Ronnie Chung is an example too, right? He's probably the most successful.
He's one of my favorite comedians right now.
Right. Jimmy O Yang is sort of like that, but he came to this country a lot younger, and he doesn't
Yeah.
do a lot of. There's
Mhm.
less China versus U.S. It's more Chinese American stuff in his act.
Yes, yes,
But do you
totally.
see a lot of fellow budding comics in our cohort?
I know Bernice Yan, and I know like Jiao Ying Summer.
Yeah, I know both of them, and I don't know them personally. I know who they are.
I've performed with both of them, and yeah, they're much more popular than I am.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, they're a lot older. No disrespect.
They're older, and I know they talk about like being the leftover lady, like 剩女.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit different from other Chinese first gen comedians that how political I am. But maybe this will get me into trouble. But besides being a comedian, I majored in comparative literature in college.
Hmm.
And I care so much about persecution of writers and translator and censorship and philosophy. And like, I think right now at my stupid 20, I'm like a Marxist. So if I'm not doing comedy, I would still be doing the same theme in other form.
Okay.
I wish I could hear more comedian talking about what they actually care about rather than using the stereotype to get a laugh.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. It's very easy to cater to your audience. You take a trope and then you modify a little bit, and all of a sudden you get new laughs, right?
That's actually one of my favorite comment that I ever received. It's from a friend of a friend who doesn't really know me, but from looking at my set on YouTube, he was like, "Oh, it seems like she is actually talking about what she wants to talk about. It's not like she's doing this for other people. She's also doing it. You can tell that she's doing it for herself." And I feel that because you know having the opportunity to speak and people would listen and you are the loudest person in the
Yeah.
room, that's a privilege which I couldn't get anywhere else in the world, honestly. It's definitely not in my hometown. So I wanted to take this privilege not for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm digesting what you're saying. I mean, I think the other comedians, oh boy.
Also, I didn't want to say that like other comedians. I'm not saying like other comedians are not
I know.
good, but I do think that as a comedian of color, I hope we're not catering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the name I would give to us is like ESL comedian, English as a second language comedian. Um,
Yeah.
I do agree with what you're saying. Like, there's all this stuff on our mind, things that we have true attitude about. But if your comic act just kind of circumvents that, that's, I don't know, is that sustainable?
It's definitely not as enjoyable
Yeah,
when I'm not talking about something that's true to my heart. Then it's entertainment rather than an art form. Like I take comedy a little bit too seriously, or like I take myself a little bit too seriously. But I think we all should, being protective of our authenticity and humanity is the first resistance to authoritative power.
yeah. So what's next for you? Do you plan to become a full-time comedian?
Well, I have to get a green card first.
Okay. Well, you can get the O1. Yeah, you have more than enough portfolio.
I have another year and a half in college in to get my master degree,
Yeah,
and then I'll get my O1 visa, the artist visa, and then I'll try to get a green card. And but I don't know. Comedy is what satisfies me as a performer the most right now. But I also act in film and TV and in theater. I am a playwright. One of my play is being produced right now. Oh, like it was one of the play I wrote about censorship and memory. It's about two goldfish that's in a tank, and one of the goldfish saw the ocean, saw the sea in a TV, and he thought, "Oh, that's where I need to go."
hmm,
But he also didn't realize that TV, like the freedom on TV is also an illusion. And so he just jumped and hit the TV and died. And so anyway, I oversimplified my story, but it's a play that I wrote and it was produced in Seattle by Yun Theater, which is a bilingual theater group. And I'm producing another show for Hollywood Fringe this June. It's a children's play tackling our trauma about female body and other stuff and bullying and other stuff. If you ask me like what I want to do, what who do I want to be, I'm sort of figuring it out. I would joke about, yeah, I'll be 女明星 one day, but like, do I want to be like a comedy star? Do I want to be doing all the kind of art that I'm doing? I don't know. We'll see.
If there's one person you could point to, it could be a celebrity or just someone you know that's, say, 10 or 20 years your senior, and that person's career is something you aspire to, who would that be?
What's the name of that Pakistani comedian? Um,
Pakistani comedian?
yeah. He wrote Big Sick.
Oh,
He was in Silicon Valley, the show. Oh yeah, Kumail Nanjiani.
no. Yeah. I see.
I would say Kumail's career. Like I also have you seen his special?
Well, he's definitely got a green hair. Sorry.
Married Before Marriage. Um, he got a white girl, but I aspire to be someone like him who acts, who writes, who does stand-up comedy, who hosts SNL. I would love to host SNL one day.
Yeah. Well, you said something about his special. What did you want to say?
He's special. It's really funny and it's very endearing. He tells story in his special, and it's a story that's authentic. It's not just the stereotypes. I would recommend folks to watch his special.
Okay.
But he was really young, and you can tell how young he was,
Right.
and compared to the stuff that he does right now. And he produced a TV show called Little American, right? It's about like first gen American immigrants in America. So yeah, that's someone who I want to be.
Okay. I do see some parallel in you guys. I mean, he did go to a liberal arts college, and then right in Iowa, and then he kind of got his start in comedy someplace.
Oh, and another Indian comedian, Verdas. Well, he sort of grew up here, but he's bilingual.
What's his name again?
Virdas. And he's very political.
Mm,
His new special, Landing,
yeah. I think I've seen him on Andrew Schultz's podcast before.
he's cool, man. He's so cool. He cares about India so deeply. I would like to become someone like him too. And he talks about receiving death threats from India for talking shit about India. You really should watch his new special.
Okay, I'm going to. I mean, I honestly feel that the Chinese diaspora out here in the States, the mainlanders out here, they're going to form a new cultural, what's the right word? Territory? Like, mm, basically a new group of people that are neither here nor there. They're neither home nor away.
Yeah, like you're too foreign for your home now, but you also here doesn't want you to stay, like you don't belong here.
Yeah, you're constantly just like, a cockroach. But I don't know. But if there are enough of us, I think you could form a new home, right? You could have your own stage. You get enough audience members that you can make them laugh,
Hmm.
right? So we're growing in numbers, I feel.
One thing I do worry about is how Chinese immigrants could be limited to the circle of only Chinese immigrants. I hope that what I'm talking about can also reach a bigger, a more diverse audience.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
that's sort of my hope for 硅谷脱口秀, for example. While they're fostering comedians from this our community, while they're very communal, which is great, I hope they could also expand, and which is good for sustaining and making money.
Right, it's true. I think language is a big issue, though. Obviously, if you only do comedy in Mandarin, then your demographic is limited.
I don't know, like look at how good Korean TV show are doing. And like look at how good Spanish TV film. Yeah, one thing I'm mad about Chinese film is that like I hope we can keep speak we as actors. I want to speak Chinese when I'm acting, but I want it to be a good film too.
Right. It is interesting, huh? Like with Korea, it's not just,
Yeah.
BTS. It's their the Squid Game. I mean, I would not have imagined this being the outcome. Americans, American TV.
Americans started watching things with subtitle. Hell yeah.
Yeah, yeah, forget it, right? Wow.
Maybe one day we will have, I don't know, maybe I'll do a special in Chinese and American will watch it in subtitle. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
But comedy is harder to translate than visual art, such as film and TV.
right, right. The other weird thing is I don't see a lot of male comedians in the ESL category.
And,
Like when you mentioned Zhao Ying and Summer Zhao Ying and or Zhao Ying Summer.
I have a theory for that because I do think in the current system in China, females are becoming stronger, forming their resistance. There are a lot of Chinese comedy club in like New York and in Vancouver that's just called 女权脱口秀, feminist
Oh, really?
comedy club. Yeah, and I'm really proud to see that. And I'm also very proud to see a lot of girls taking the street in Shanghai. Like a lot of people who are arrested are women. Because I think women are having a harder time in the patriarchal system in China. Also, comedy comes from tragedy. So if you have a harder time, you naturally have more jokes, I guess.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I mean, so 硅谷脱口秀, for example, is still more men than women, right?
Hmm.
But I'm specifically talking about comics that speak English. You see, there's not many men, are there?
I'm just guessing. But I do think, like, in American culture, East Asian females are having a easier time than East Asian males.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, acting in media.
In the hierarchy of racism. Yeah.
Right. Well, dateability, right? Like Asian men is at the bottom, near the bottom. I think second to last. Yeah.
I think both.
Mm.
Like female comedian coming from another country that's oppressive, like India or Middle East, or I'm not only talking about ESL Chinese English.
Yeah. Yeah.
In general, women from other parts of the world come to America. They are the ones who's benefiting more and finding their more of the freedom.
Interesting. Speaking of Chinese ESL comedians, you could also follow Peng Dang. He's on Instagram. He is based in Texas. He came on my show and he tells jokes in English. He speaks a perfect English, but
Oh,
he generally touches upon China, America things. But he's not political, at least not yet.
wow. Please, if you know him, connect us.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Happy to. Happy to.
Thank you. What you're doing, I really appreciate. I'm really grateful for this.
No, no, not at all. I think the other thing, the other issue with male comedians, Chinese, I'm specifically talking about Chinese. By the way, I don't see a lot of Japanese or Korean male ESL comedians either, or just Asian American comedians for that matter. Do you know any? Like, if you browse Netflix, I just don't see any East Asian face.
Yeah, like the Japanese female comedian. What's her name? She just got a special on HBO. It is strange because oh my god! So I post my set on YouTube, right? And half of the comment is commenting on whether females are funny, and I was like, wow, that is not a stereotype in China. Well, it sort of is, but not as strong.
So half the comments are debating whether girls are funnier.
Yeah, whether girls could be funny.
Uh-huh.
It's not about girls being funnier. It's like, are females even funny? There's one comment that says, there might be one funny female on this planet. This is not it. So it's so stupid. And it just makes you realize how Christian this country is, how misogynistic like American culture is, when because it's founded on Christian values, and which is very misogynistic.
Yeah.
But I don't think the same level of stereotype against female exists in China, or I don't know, other places in the world.
Oh, you're saying in China, people actually think that women can be funny too, right? as opposed to here?
I think it's a thing that's from communism. It's like Mao says, 女性能顶半边天. Then
Hold up half the sky. Yeah,
you grew up, yeah, you grew up. I'm not saying like we don't have stereotype.
of
We
course.
definitely do,
Yeah.
but I felt growing up in China made me feel more equal to my male counterpart.
Mm.
Like I could be a good student. I could be smart in math. I could be funny, you know?
So, how are you honing your comedy skills these days? Are you still going to open mics?
I should. I'm not going as much as I open mics as I did. I sort of officially started this past summer. All my jokes right now I've written within the past year because I wanted to do comedy when I first graduated, but it was pandemic and I was in New York and I was doing like a couple open mics in subway station or in the park. I was like, this is not it.
Wait, you're doing open mic in subway stations?
Yeah, because it was pandemic. All the clubs were closed.
Right, right. But was there someone hosting an open mic, or were you just standing on the street?
Yeah, people are still hosting open mics. That's what comedians do.
Wow, talk about hustling. That's real respect, my
Hey, yeah, we're hustling. But I stopped hustling because the wind just blow away all the laughs. It doesn't make sense. So I didn't really officially start hitting many open mics as I want to until last summer. That was the first summer without COVID, not without COVID. I mean, like the first summer we felt like safe to go to a public space, go to a bar. And the first 3 months, I sort of went to 3 open mics to 5 open mics every night. And oh my God, the gas money I spent,
friend.
it was bad. So now I'm trying to write more. I'm the kind of person who need to write it verbatimly first and then remember it and then do it. There are other comedians, especially comedian whose first language is English. They could just riff on stage and just should start. You could just start talking and keep talking and eventually find the punchline. I can't do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe at some point you will, but not right now yet.
Hannah Gatsby talked about this in her book too, about how open mic settings are not very friendly to minority groups, basically, if to females or people of color or like if you think about open mic, it's kind of scary and it's kind of hostile.
How do you handle bombing? Right? That's what people are afraid of, just bombing, right? Like, so obviously everyone has bombed. How do you handle it? Real time, and how do you feel afterwards?
Here's a very good definition of bombing that I heard from a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
Bombing is not when they're not laughing. Bombing is when they stopped listening to you. So I think the core of stand-up comedy is for you to be heard for what you have to say, and people have to listen. It's not only about cracking someone up, you know? So if I don't get a
Okay.
laugh, but I could feel like they're still with me, I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
If I felt like a train wreck and everyone already jumped out of my train,
Yeah. Yeah. If they're looking at their phones.
um, you there's no way to deal with it, honestly. You soldier through it and until you're given the light, and you come back and do it again. I don't have a hard time with bombing. I'm a natural performer. I perform in theater, so I'm okay with no having getting no reaction from audience.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know.
Like if you think about who's that comedian? The comedian has the moth joke.
Mock joke?
No, moth. Oh, Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald. Yeah. If you think about Norm, the kind of jokes that he tells, you're like, how could he do it? How could sustain this awkwardness until the last second where he gives a punchline and kill everyone? I really like him, and I think we all the comedians could learn from how he handles bombing, which is not bombing. It's just, people are still listening to you.
So you're saying he's very comfortable with silence? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
He's okay with like extremely long setups followed by a killing punchline?
Yeah, that's how you practice being comfortable with bombing. 'Cause then it's sort of like in a setup, you're keep trying to save it, right? Like, don't even try to save it, I feel like. Just like be
Mm.
comfortable with it and go with the flow.
Yeah. I think confidence is key, really. I think
Confidence is the key, yeah.
if people can feel that you don't even exude confidence in your own act, they're gonna feel even more nervous than you. They feel that you're not worth listening to. So you have to just
I agree.
carry yourself through the show, even if no one laughs, and just finish strong, like as if there's a laugh track happening.
It's because it's a dialogue, not a monologue. In a conversation with your friend, you're just trying to communicate yourself. You don't try to get something back from the audience. I feel like, because how do I say this? It's a really good question. And I feel like it's so key to stand up comedy. I think what I want to say is sometimes we do it in a way that the audience know that we want to hear their laugh. And
Yeah.
then they won't give it to us.
Okay.
Show them that I don't care.
Yeah.
Laugh if you want, but I'm just,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of telling you something I find really funny, and you do you. Whatever you want to do is fine with me. And if you're laughing, then I'll maybe wait until I tell my next joke.
wow, I keep name dropping. So Steve Martin, I also read his book, and he was like, "That's why you're lit up, and the audience is in the dark.
Yeah.
You want them to feel safe, and the audience, once the audience feels safe with you, and it feels like you won't force them to do anything, then they will do things naturally. They will laugh naturally. It's about the security that you
Mm,
make your audience feel."
okay. That's a thinker. I honestly feel it's easier for me to tell English jokes than Chinese jokes because sometimes I would try to tell a Chinese joke and I think it's funny, but no one laughs. Yeah. I don't know. Either I think it's just the cultural context. Like for example, I drive a red Honda, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, it's obviously no luxury car by any stretch of imagination, but I'm very proud of it. I don't want to switch up to, any other car. And it's red, it 日行千里. So I said I call it 赤兔马, right? And nobody laughed. Right. Now you're laughing, but then the other guys, like afterwards, I was doing a post-mortem with the other comics, and they're just like, "Yeah, this is all very normal Chinese word. Everyone knows what 赤兔马 is when you say 赤兔马." People are like, "Yeah, but what's the punchline?"
Mm.
That's why nobody laughed. Yeah.
Mm. Wow,
And then somebody came to me and said, if you had said 赤兔, like people might have responded a little bit better. And I was like, wow, really? So, there's these little very nuanced tweaks you can make to your language that it's just like when you tell American jokes, right? Like when you change certain words around, it could make a killer joke totally unfunny, right? Like there's this joke about Kim Kardashian. So Kim Kardashian was having a baby and she elected C-section. So the joke goes, even in childbirth, she decided to avoid labor at all costs. So but then if you had said even in childbirth she decided not to have labor or something, it just seemed like it's not as good, right?
yeah.
So if you don't speak the languages often, you're not immersing yourself in like Weibo or Xiaohongshu or something, then you won't know what are the triggering word choices.
That's why I don't do comedy in Chinese. I do think I'm a little bit far from the culture now. It's kind of sad. I haven't been back for 6 years. So, and I don't use Weibo.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't think you should go back at this point, right? Just have your parents visit, or have your extended family visit. But your parents, your mom has been visiting though, right?
I haven't seen her for 4 years or 3 years.
But you did see your mom in person, right? In the 6 years?
I haven't seen my mom in person for a long time.
Oh, wow.
It's all right.
That's tough. Yeah. Olivia, it's been great talking to you. Any last word of wisdom for fellow budding ESL comedians?
Do you have a lot of listeners?
A few.
Nice. I would say, well, first follow my Instagram,
Yes.
DM me, and I please reach out. And I love talking to you. It's Olivia Crossing. No, actually, just search my name. Olivia and then Xing.
Okay. Okay.
One last word would be you only live once.
It's true. It's true. Until AI takes over and then you can implant your brain in some robot and you can live forever.
Fuck. You ruined my punchline. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, good talking to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Good talk to you. Bye.
Bye.